but I don't hear anything.
It says on the air.
And we are on the air. Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse, and I'm joined with Tara and Amanda, joined by something like that. And we're going to kind of introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about AI. And for anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Jesse. I'm a podcast editor, content creator, and more recently I've been learning AI and automations, not just for our own business, but to be able to start offering that as a service to other businesses. I'll introduce you to Tara Kelly. Here we go.
Are you going to introduce me?
This is Tara Kelly, my partner, my best friend, my everything. She's a very talented branding expert and creative, and really anything creative she's good at.
Well, thank you. That's very high praise. I'm a brand and marketing strategist. I have been in the creative world for over 15 years. I've been on marketing teams. I've worked for startups, bigger corporations, service professionals, and I've really fallen in love with telling people's stories and being able to share their brand with the world. And I have been down the AI rabbit hole quite a bit the last couple years. First, I fought it really hard because I am a creative, I'm a writer, I'm a designer, and I'm like, no way can AI take over what I do. It still doesn't. It still can't quite do what I do, but after a year or so, I really started to see it as a tool to help me become more efficient and let me spend more time on the things that I love to do. So I'm really excited to be here to talk about AI and how I use it in marketing and discuss it with Jesse and Amanda here.
Thank you, Tara, and I'll introduce Amanda. Amanda is another McEwan. She's my sister. She has been running businesses for forever now. I mean, probably ever since, you were a teenager? You've been running businesses?
Since the late 1900s.
But, yeah, she's got a business degree and is really good with business operations. So here's Amanda. And that's not Amanda.
I am the other McEwan. And as Jesse said, I've been kind of engulfed in business since I was a teenager. I started working at 16 at a TCBY and quickly became the manager there and just kind of dove into how businesses work. And then my career just took me in all kinds of fun directions. I've spent a lot of time in production, which is a very fun world that is greatly being affected by AI, which is why for this live event, I was pushed as the skeptic. And it's not because I'm skeptical that AI is here or that it's helpful. It's more that I just don't know how to use it for myself yet. So I'm eager to learn all of this and utilize it because I do work with a lot of businesses and help them with the back end of the operations, all the businessy stuff, spreadsheets and whatnot that nobody wants to deal with. That's kind of my forte. So I'm sure there are plenty of ways I could be using AI to make that easier for myself and other businesses, but I'm still new to trying to figure out how that all works.
So we've got one comment already, and hello, Mind Games. Yes, we are live. So I think we talked about our experience with AI a little bit. I think the next thing is to just talk about some of the misconceptions about AI. And give me just a second. A lot of that really comes down to a lot of people have tried it. We've probably all tried ChatGPT at one point or another, and you type in a question or whatever it is you type in, and you get something back. And a lot of times we might not be really thrilled or ecstatic about the response that we got. Maybe we ask it since we're talking to business people, maybe you asked it to write something for social media, a social media post. So you type in something kind of like create a social media post for me, and it does its thing, and you think to yourself, this isn't good. It doesn't have anything to do with what I do. So we start thinking that AI is just not good enough, and we kind of leave it at that. So a lot of people think, well, I've tried it, it's just not that good. Another issue is kind of like what Tara was talking about. People try it, especially early on, and have the opinion that this isn't as good as I am. I don't need this. Other people might have concerns about being able to trust the output, what it creates. Is it going to be accurate? Because we know AI can hallucinate or just make stuff up. And when it does that, it can sound very convincing. So there's a bit of a trust element there. For others, there might be just too many options. It can be overwhelming trying to dive into AI. And another one is it's expensive for all of these different subscriptions. And we've got another comment. I won't be surprised if you become a billionaire. You actually look like a smart nerd. I wish it was that easy. I think we'd all be happy to just split $1 billion or even $1 million between the three of us. I think that would make our lives a lot better.
I would say that's accurate about you. You are a very smart nerd. That's a good assessment.
I could say the same about you. Even though you're a creative, you're still a smart nerd.
Nerd, yes. Or smart, it depends on the day.
You're just as good, if not better, prompting the AI than I am.
Tara is undervaluing her expertise in this AI world. She is what is going to turn me from a skeptic into a believer, because I have a tendency to be a little bit wordy when I'm trying to figure out how to describe what I do. Because like a lot of people, if you're an accountant, it's very easy to say, oh, I'm an accountant. People know what that is. I'm a production manager. I'm a business consultant. And sometimes I'm a fractional chief operating officer. Sometimes I don't even have a title. Trying to explain that in a succinct way, not very easy. But I can babble. And there was one time that Tara listened to me babble. She took notes and then very quickly used her AI friend to turn all of my babble into some very concise, very descriptive things that made me think, oh yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Good robot. So but when I've tried to do it myself, I still don't quite know the right way to prompt, right way to try to tell this AI what it is that I'm trying to get it to tell me. It's still very much a learning curve.
Oh yeah. We called it Amanda's robot for fun. I even created a little robot for her, a little GPT, to help her with her copy. It was fun.
You also created a snarky one for me to troubleshoot my AI.
I absolutely did. To just give him smart ass comments and actually sound a lot like him. You know, he's very straightforward, he's very direct. And I like to do that. For a couple of clients, train whether it's a gem or a GPT, to sound and respond in their style and the way they like to talk. You know, if they're straightforward or they're a little rambly or they just kind of are a little sarcastic, I like to throw that in there, and you can.
It's always fun. There's so many ways we can use AI, and really when it comes to business, the first thing we need to understand is using AI is a skill. It's like anything else. You can't just pick up a guitar and strum it and realize this doesn't sound like music and say, well, the guitar is just not good enough. AI is very much the same way. We have this idea that it will do everything for us, but what we get out of it is really heavily dependent on how well we're prompting it, how well we know how to direct it. And it's a lot like bringing on a new employee. we have to onboard them. We have to train them. We have to set expectations. If we don't do that, we just bring them in and plop them at a desk and say, okay, here you go do your job. Are we going to expect them to do very good with that? They need some direction. Tara, what are your thoughts on the importance of being able to direct it and prompt it well?
I think it takes a lot of practice, and you have to remember AI is very literal and it can hallucinate. So, one of the things that you have to keep in mind whenever you're working with AI is AI can be wrong. It tells you whether you use GPT or Gemini, hey, AI can be wrong. Do your research. And I recommend that first and foremost. If you're using AI to do research or you're using it to help you like draft copy or for inspiration, always check reputable resources to make sure that what the information you're getting is accurate or usable. And the other thing is when you're prompting, you have to be really clear about what you want. And part of the way you do that is actually, see, I'm a writer. So in my case, I give examples of my writing. So I will write a draft myself. And I will say, okay, this is my voice. This is what I want to sound like. Help me polish this up, or help me create something that's similar to this. Do a draft. And after a while, when you start feeding it this information, when you start training it on your voice, what you like, what you don't like, you give it feedback. You say things like, you know what, that sounds like a bunch of generic marketing speak. I don't like to use the word unlocking or the phrase unlocking your potential. Just no. I'm very concrete. I'm a direct speaker. And so it takes some back and forth. It takes some practice to really figure out how to produce the best results possible. And a lot of it does have to come from you. So it's not something where you can just put in a prompt and say, write me a blog about audio production, and it's going to spit out something great. You do that, it's going to spit out something really generic. You really have to put yourself into it, your personality, your voice, and you have to train it on your voice. And I wouldn't necessarily use it as rely on it to do all my writing for me either. The way I like to do it is I like to have it help me polish things up, because I can ramble, much like I'm doing probably right now. I also ramble in my writing. So it's like, okay, help me make this more concise. What's a better, more succinct, clearer way to say this? The other thing I find AI to be really helpful for is if you're in a workplace, and we all know, especially if we're working remotely, communication can be really hard. People can interpret an email 70 different ways. So helping you construct an email, especially if it's something a little like there's a conflict, okay, how can I communicate this in a way that's going to be neutral and is going to have less of a chance of offending someone? It can help you with things like that too. So it sounds, Jesse, can you hear me?
I can
I
hear
can't
Tara,
hear
but I
you.
can't hear Jesse.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was on my end, but it sounds like
Yeah.
Mind Game
Mind
can't
Game.
hear us either.
Mind Game, can you hear Tara and or me? Is it just Jesse that you can't hear? I think he left us, and he's the audio guy, so that's no good. Audio guy, come back. This is all the fun of live. We're not experts at this whole live thing, so bear with
Yeah,
us.
it's our first live stream. We're
And
figuring
Tara,
it out.
I don't see you. Jesse said I would see you when we went live. I don't see you.
I don't see you either, and it's really distracting. Like, I just see my big mug. Like, I don't see anybody else.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the audio guy has no audio. So this is fun. Well, we let him figure that out. But there is some really fun irony to that.
If you join
Sorry.
You're
if you
welcome
join
back.
it, you can see all three of us. I'm looking at my phone so I can see you both.
Yeah.
That's the problem with having too many buttons and too many things on my desk trying to control things. I muted myself somewhere else, and
Oh no.
I'm like, why isn't this working?
Yeah.
But
That's all
I
right.
think I was talking about AI and using it to automate the kind of the boring parts of our business. There's so much, I guess, redundant or low effort type things we do day to day in running our business that doesn't generate us money. Whether that's invoicing, creating quotes, and since we're live, I'm drawing blanks on other examples, but anything that has a well-defined process can generally be automated, especially if it's all being done in the digital realm. Much like you can set up an email autoresponder. You can do all sorts of stuff like that. That's automation. So common types of automations we've been using for a while are contact forms on a website. Someone goes to your website, they fill out the form, they hit send, it sends you information. We're using HoneyBook. Once HoneyBook gets that form information, it will use AI to do some background research on that person, which has been very helpful for us. So when we get someone who emails us from our forums, we have a little bit of information about what their business is, who they are, and it helps us be able to know who we're working or who we're talking to, what they do, and it saves us that time of having to research before we respond to them. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes sense to me.
It does. You explained it well, nerd.
Thank
I
you.
think that the issues that I've always had up to this point with it is trying to understand what things I do can be automated, because every client I have is completely different. And so there aren't, in my mind, there aren't processes that I'm repeating over and over. In the cases where I do send similar emails repeatedly, I do have templates for that. So I do a lot of copy paste. But as far as like my regular, the bulk of what I do, it's so different from each client and each project, because like I said, I'm doing a bunch of different things, and I haven't really come across much that's repeat from even within one client from day to day, and it's trying to identify that. Also, in the beginning, Jesse mentioned the fear issues or trust issues, and I definitely have that, because a lot of the software that I do use, and I'll use a really boring one like QuickBooks Online, for example, they have a lot of integrated AI type features where you can teach it, it learns, and it can automatically categorize things. Again, really boring bookkeeping type stuff. But I have found that it doesn't do it correctly. And so if I'm not paying attention to somebody, if a client has set up some of those auto categorization things, I never see it from my end unless I'm digging into reports. So of course we just passed tax time, and then suddenly expenses are all off, and I have to go back in and realize, okay, so this automation did not work, and it put things into a place where it didn't belong. So that my tendency is just get rid of all of that automation. I feel better doing it myself because I trust me more. So it's that being able to use it and trust it, but also understanding that you have to babysit it at the same time. It's not going to just do everything for you, although it should.
And I
And
think a
that's
lot of people
go on.
I think a lot of people feel that way, Amanda, that it's really hard to trust AI. I feel that same way about using it for any kind of content creation or graphics to generate that kind of thing. It's a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong, you feel like, creative director, okay, do this. But, it can be challenging to get results that really look good that you think you want to use. But also, it can be hard to trust that what you're getting is good, especially if you're not experienced with it. You're not experienced. Let's say you're not a copywriter and you're a business owner and you're trying to do it all. You're like, okay, I'm going to save some money and use AI to do all the copy for my website. How do you trust that it's good, that it's going to work if you don't have that background? So I think a lot of people feel that way. They feel skeptical. What would help you, Amanda, give you some reassurance? Like, okay, I'm going to put my faith in AI to help me with these processes.
I think it's just time. I mean, it takes me a while to trust humans too. So it's not that. I mean, I'm so used to doing everything myself, which has led me to a certain point, but it's also kind of exhausting. I would love to have people helping me and people that I can trust. And so far in my career, I found exactly one person that I felt comfortable representing me in a field of work. There's one person that I can say, look, you go do this, you do things, I trust you, we're fine. So to have AI do it, just like there's room for human error, obviously AI is going to have error too. So I think it's just time. I think it's consistency. I trust consistency. And, I'm very open-minded to all of it because, well, there are a lot of reasons. So I don't want to go on to a tangent because I'm sure we'll get to that point. But there's also, there's so many different things, and I really just need to see it consistently to see how it works and that it will make my life easier and then I can relax a little bit. But what I like about it is that it's much like me and it's somewhat emotionless, and I think that goes a really long way because that humans, all of us, including Jesse and I always refer to ourselves as robots, but there is a certain element of emotion that goes into everything. So I like the idea of, I can ask it for advice on something like copywriting, which is not something that I do. And I know that it's learning from what I tell it. So it's learning me, and I can argue with it and if I need to. And it's not going to get its feelings hurt if I disagree with a suggestion that it makes. In my brief encounters with using it to help me narrow down some copy for the new website, it really likes to repeat words and phrasing. And it's one of those things that when I'm writing, it drives me crazy because in such a short blurb, there's no reason to repeat a word. And it has those catchphrases like operational bottlenecks that it's just like, no, I don't talk like that. And so I've learned that anytime I prompt it to do something, I have to start with be mindful to not repeat words and phrasing because otherwise I just get the same word repeatedly in one paragraph.
And I think really the big thing is that AI, it needs babysitting, it needs hand-holding. And I think the better way to look at it is as a coworker. If you're working as like the head of a creative team or a marketing team, you're the creative director. So like Tara, you'd be the creative director. You can use these AIs as the people under you, the assistants who are helping you generate ideas. They're writing up rough drafts. They're creating stuff for you to review. And that's the big thing. We want to be able to, as humans, review the work that is being done. We want to make sure that it's accurate. We want to make sure that it's not just hallucinating and saying, hey, you know what? You're a millionaire. We'd love to see that in our QuickBooks, but we want it to be accurate. So we need to put these types of systems in place, like with QuickBooks. I'd really like to see something set up where everything gives you some sort of alert that this has been categorized this way. Come verify that this is correct. And if it is in the future, everything from this vendor that has this type of invoice will be categorized this way. But sometimes, even in those situations, some things might fall through the cracks and get miscategorized. I guess it's no different than working with a person. And we've got a couple of comments or questions I want to go back to.
We do.
I like the questions.
So-
Thank you, Mind Game.
Yes. What do you think that most people don't know about AI now, but they will in 5 to 10 years? That's actually a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
I think what people don't know about AI right now is that they don't know anything about AI right now. It's moving so fast that in 5 to 10 years, probably only the people working in the AI industry have any clue what it's going to look like. Based on what I've seen, I think it's going to just really change how everything is done just across the board. Whether it's, say, you work in the service industry, it's going to be used to help predict when you'll have failures in parts, so you can have the right amount of spare parts on hand, or the right supplies if you're an HVAC company, knowing who all of your clients are, what their needs are, so you can always have the right filters, the right belts, the right motors, all of that stuff on hand. But you're not overstocking, but you're not understocking. For creative work, it's already having a huge impact on how everything is done. And Tara can really go into that a little bit more on how you've seen, or maybe better, how you've used it over the last few years, going from someone who wasn't very fond of it to going, I need to learn how to do this or I'm going to fall behind.
Yeah, that's actually, I've been shocked how fast it's been moving. I started using it in the fall of 2022. It honestly seems like yesterday. And when I first started playing around with it, I started playing around with GPT. I was not that impressed. I was like, this writing isn't that great. It's really generic. Like, I don't know if this is going to be able to help me out much. So I was really skeptical about it at first, but then I started changing my prompting. I started developing a little further, and I was getting better and better results each time. But during that period, AI just kept getting better and better. They kept updating the models. And here we are in 2025, and it's come a really long way in just a couple of years. The results I'm getting are even closer to what I am wanting. It's obviously, it's never perfect. It's really, like Jesse said, it takes a lot of babysitting. But one of the things that was interesting to me is I'm an author. I write books for Macmillan. I'm a fiction stories. So I have my stories that I work on, and you can actually go in AI and like ask it to write in the voice of a certain author, which I had it do that for me, which was a really interesting experience. But a couple of years ago, I would describe the writing that came out just for fun as terrible. I was like, no. The dialogue was stiff. It was just like, there's no way it could ever like write books or do fiction writing. I still feel that way. It's still stiff. Like there's a magic that happens when, as a human being, you write and you get in that blank page and you get in these characters' heads and you just let stuff happen and the words just come out of you. I'm skeptical if AI will ever replicate that. We will see. The other thing with AI is it's really changed marketing. It's really changed the creative space. It's really affected jobs. There's been a lot of layoffs. There's been a lot of people are out of work right now in my industry. A lot of us are just kind of going around going, what's next? What do we do? Because people are using GPT for stuff they used to hire copywriters for, or they used to hire designers for. And I think it's going to take some time for the dust to settle and for people to really see, okay, what can AI truly do and what do I still need a human for? I'm of the mindset that we still need humans to babysit AI and train AI and work with AI and use AI as a tool. But AI is not, at least right now, in a place where it can completely take over our jobs and, what we're doing. It's always going to need somebody to be the robot handler, so to speak, and my earpod keeps falling out. And that's where I'm focusing my time now as a marketer and a creative. I'm focusing on how do I utilize AI to the best of its ability and help me become a better creator, become a better marketer, be able to focus more on the stuff I like to do, have it do the more tedious things that take up way too much time. I think those are the things that people can start utilizing AI for. And that way we're still in control, so to speak. We are still managing the process. We are still overseeing the quality. We're not just like letting AI do it all.
And I've seen this a lot in my world also. I work a lot in TV and film, and obviously AI, there are a lot of ethical concerns. There's a lot of paranoia. People are scared that AI is just going to take over everything. And I'm not here to not validate that stuff. I think that's a whole separate conversation about that. What I have seen is how much easier it has made a lot of the work, and both good and bad. So, for example, a documentary that I worked on, we had a very skilled, trained audio engineer worked on it for weeks, and made it sound as good as possible. A lot of interviews were shot kind of in loud places, so there was a lot of background noise, which there often is. You can only reduce background noise so much without making it just sound completely weird. And that was in 2017, 18-ish, and we kind of let it go for a little bit. And some of the new tools that have come out since then, the director slash editor of that film was able to just basically push a button and clean up that background noise and make it sound great in a very, very short time. So there's that part of me that's like, well, what's going to happen to all my audio engineer friends? Because these tools are coming out and they're making things much simpler. The visual components are not quite there in my opinion yet. I've seen a lot of people try to use AI to upgrade old footage and make it look new, and people come out looking really robotic and freaky, and that kind of scares me a little bit. I seem to be more sensitive to it than a lot. Like, I can point it out, I'm like, that's not real, that's not real. And so it still needs some work. And when you have a big budget film or a TV show, I think you absolutely should still be paying people when reasonable. But what I'm seeing where it comes in handy, so that one independent filmmaker, so he's a guy that he goes out and he shoots and he edits and he does everything himself. He's just one person. Now he can use AI to be his assistant editor to log. I mean, he'll come back from shooting for a film with hundreds of hours worth of footage that he used to have to comb through. Now he can just have AI log it, transcribe it, do all of this stuff that used to take him a lot of time, and he can put together his films much more quickly because it's doing that busy work. And I remember, of course, because, I've been doing this for a very long time. We've been through other situations where technology changed and people were afraid of it. And it sounds silly to say now that HD is relatively new. Like back in the late 1900s, early 2000s, it was this, like, HD was very expensive. You had to go through training to use these big giant cameras. You had to put on your shoulder, and it was this whole thing. And then as smartphones became more prevalent and the equipment that used to cost tens of thousands of dollars, now there's a college kid that has the exact same laptop, the exact same software, can do all of this, or now on his phone. But it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's technology advances. I think what people like us all need to do is learn how to use it to pivot. We have to do things differently, but different doesn't always mean worse. It's, I find when people hang on to how things used to be is when they get in trouble, because things are not going to be that way. I don't think AI is going anywhere. So we're all better off embracing it and figuring out how we can use it to our benefit instead of running away and saying, no, bad. It's going to take jobs away from everybody. It's just a matter of figuring out what to do with it and how to kind of pivot and figure out what the new normal is going to be for all of us.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing we lose sight of, is technology always impacts jobs. What we're doing right here, right now, we're in two different places because me and Tara are in the same house, but to do a live stream like this, a live broadcast, would have required satellites and a staff of people to facilitate all of this, to be able to go live out to wherever. Now we have applications we turn on, send people links, they click on them, and here we are going out to the internet. Whoever's there, we know Mind Game is out there. Hopefully there's some other folks out there, but technology is always changing, and we can either adapt to it, we can push against it, or just kind of bury our heads in the sand and hope it is just a fad that goes away. Got another comment or question or two. Do you think AI is going to make us smarter or dumb and be dependent on it forever? Like using a calculator for most teenagers nowadays, they don't know what 9 times 7 is. I think it can do both. I don't think it's an either or type thing, because I can see why maybe knowing how to do math in your head or even on paper to figure out what 9 times 7 is, why that might not be the most important information we need to retain. I don't know about you, but my head only has so much capacity. So it seems like it's always expunging unnecessary information to absorb more relevant information. Like anybody who's taken a history class who doesn't really live in that space and isn't training to be on Jeopardy, they've probably forgotten a lot about that history or geography or whatever the subject is. So I don't think it's going to necessarily make us smarter or dumber. It's going to just change how we go about learning, change the types of things that are important for us to know and understand to be successful. I think it's going to change the skill sets we need to develop. And I think the ironic thing is that it's going to place a premium on those people who still interact themselves, because we're already seeing a lot of communications go completely AI, whether it's autoresponder emails, a bunch of ChatGPT generated cold emails, to chat interactions for tech support. You're starting to get more and more voice operated tech support. And it's going to get to a point where if I want to hire somebody, I want to be able to feel like there's a human behind that, as opposed to I'm just working with the robot. What do you two think?
How do we follow that up?
Well, I
I
know
don't
that
know.
I wish that we could determine what information gets expunged from our brains to make room for this new stuff. Because as we know, I have a lot of really weird things from my childhood, like lyrics to weird songs that still live in there rent free. So, but I can't get rid of that. But, phone numbers from childhood, that kind of thing. But I do think it's changed the way our brains work. And, to some degree, I do actually use math every day, and I trick myself sometimes and be like, you know what, I'm going to do this in my head just to make sure that I still can. But there are spreadsheets, there are calculators, there are all kinds of tools that do us for it. So I often use it to check my own work. And I think AI is kind of the same thing. Like we've been saying, it's there to check my work, or it actually the reverse of that. I want it to do the work, and then I'll check it just to make sure that it's good. But I don't know about the younger, what do you say, the teenagers nowadays, and what they know and what they don't know, but they do know how to adapt quickly to new technology. And that's something that, we're kind of in that Gen X millennial cusp. Well, Jesse's secure in Gen X, but Tara and I are kind of right there on that cusp. And we know the world that was pre-internet. I don't know how I ever got anywhere. I'm so terrible with direction that it baffles me that I'm not lost still from somewhere I tried to go a long time ago. Everything that I have now, because my phone tells me how to get to where I need to go. So I definitely rely on the phone quite a bit. But I know the world how it was before the internet, and then I was able to adapt with it quickly after, which I think has been really beneficial to kind of have one foot in each. But the kids now, oh gosh, that sounds so old to say, oh, the kids these days. But they really know how to take this new stuff and run with it. And I think that's what a lot of us can learn from is the embracing of it. It's like I said before, we can't be scared of it because it's not going away. So the best thing we can do is figure out, well, how can we use it and how can it make our lives better?
And I wanted
Exactly.
to go on.
Yeah. I was just saying exactly. I'm still hearing a lot of skepticism, a lot of anti out there, like, you know, don't use it at all. The thing is, it isn't going away. It's here. The cat has been let out of the bag, so to speak. So now I look at it like, okay, it's here. What do we do with it? How can we make it work for us? And how can we utilize it and just accept that piece of it? Because I think the more you try to fight it or find a way around it, it's just going to lead to frustration. Go ahead, Jesse.
Okay, so what I was going to say is kind of tying into things both of you have said is that, like with checking your work with the math, you need to, that's why it's so challenging to use AI in areas that you aren't really an expert in, because you can't check its work. Because AI has, we'll just use ChatGPT as an example. It can struggle with some pretty basic everyday things like math. It's getting better, but we need to be able to check its output to make sure that it is actually doing things correctly. Because, like I said, it can hallucinate and it sounds very convincing that it knows what it's doing. So, kind of like Tara's example about a copywriter or a non-copywriter using it to create copy. I think she was secretly pointing at me when she said that, because I've tried to take on some of the copywriting stuff for one of my websites to give her time to work on her stuff. And she looks at it, she shakes her head, this is terrible. And I go back and read it a couple of years later, and it's like, yeah, after using it for a couple of years, I see all of these ways where it sounded good at the time, but it sounds very AI now. So we need to always go back and revisit things, as well as pay attention to make sure that it is giving us the best outputs possible. And I want to go to one other comment. So Mind Games video said, I'm from Somalia, by the way. Nice to meet you guys. Nice to meet you as well, Mind Games. And it's good to know we're going international, global with this. So thank you for joining us for our meandering, whatever this is.
That's another reason why all this technology is so great, because when else would we be able to talk with somebody in Somalia? It's this weird thing. It's this interconnectivity that, it makes it easier to connect with people, but it also makes it more difficult to connect with people because we all I we don't like to talk to people anymore. It's, nobody answers their phone. Voicemail is a thing of the past. I know if it's me, if I have the option to do a chat versus call somebody on the phone, like for tech support or something like that, I'll start with the chat first because then I don't have to talk to somebody. If it's more detailed, I'd rather just get on the phone. And sometimes it makes more sense, but so many people now, it's all text, it's email, it's emojis. I mean, look at Mind Games comments. There's, we know that Mind Games having a good time with all, and that's appreciated. But everything, the communication has changed so much. And I'm curious, of course, what will keep happening. Another thing that I know currently, a lot of people are using AI as a therapist, is they're able to, from what my understanding of it is they ask the questions, and GPT or whatever it is, it will ask questions back and it'll get people to think about things in a different way. And I just saw a thread the other day, and a bunch of people that are naming their AI therapist, so that they're giving them names, and this is the person, this person, it's not a person. They are talking to AI as if it was a therapist and getting advice about their lives. Now, I can see both sides of that, but if it gets these people to think about their issues, their problems, their life experiences, good and bad, in a different way, that can be very beneficial But I think we just need to be careful that we don't just do what the robots tell us to do without. We still need the common sense. We still need logic. We still need the critical thinking. I think those parts of the human brain will always be important, and we can't rely 100% on AI to do everything for us.
Exactly. A little skepticism is very healthy in this case. I think if we expect AI to do everything for us, we're in trouble.
And the last thing we want is to get to a point in society where we let the robots do everything and we end up in idiocracy. We don't want to go there. So we need to find ways to make sure we're still engaged and we're still using our brains. And I think we'll go on to the next section of this, and that's trying to think back. What do we need to know about AI and using it for business? We've talked about that a little bit. And if anybody's watching, I'm not the best speaker, so I get tongue-tied. My brain goes blank, so that's just part of dealing with me. But I think one of the other things is, in addition to automating stuff, we need to be able to focus on the tools that we are using. There's so much out there that if we try to keep up with everything, it's just overwhelming because there's so many new. Just in the time I'm trying to spit out this sentence, there's probably been a dozen new AI apps dropped on the market. They're just coming out left and right. Some of them are really good. Some of them are kind of proof of concept at this point. Tara and I demoed one that was like ChatGPT for marketers. We thought it would be really good because it was aimed at marketers. This person has a long-standing track record of working in the marketing space and being, I guess, a thought leader in it, has a number of books. But we tried it out, and I can't remember what Tara thought about it, but to me, everything I got out of it just seemed like really generic. This just goes straight to ChatGPT and this is what it spit out. It was not trained well to give good writing. I just couldn't see any. Go on.
It kind of reminded me of those website builders now that they all have the AI, and you can tell it, okay, feed a little bit of information about your business, and then it'll write like your copy for you and build your website. And to me, it's always kind of terrible. The copy was very generic. It was very branding 101. There was nothing to really differentiate our company versus another company. And I think, yes, these services are easy to use, and if you don't understand branding or marketing, you might think, okay, this is much better copy than I could write, or this is a better design than I could come up with. I'm happy with it. But I think, again, go in with that healthy amount of skepticism, and if look at what it's generated and go to your competitors' websites, go to other websites in the industry and see how it compares and see which ones stick out to you and why. Look at the copy. Does it feel a lot more personalized? Does it feel like they're actually speaking to a human and that a human is actually speaking? Or is it using a lot of buzzwords that you've heard over and over and over again? That's what we found with that particular app.
And another one that comes to mind, can you remember your thought, or do you want to? Okay, this will just take a minute. Since I work in the podcasting space, another one that comes to mind is Cast Magic. And I tried that, and it was very much the same thing. It's so easy to write an app that connects to ChatGPT in the background to do all of the AI stuff, that when you get these more specialized tools, the problem is that the prompting has to be somewhat generic to fit a wide use or a wider audience. And that's why doing it yourself or working with someone who can create this stuff for you can give you so much more flexibility, because you can train it on your needs, your branding, your vocabulary, so that it's creating stuff that's more in tune with what you need and less generic. Now I'll hand it over to you, Amanda.
Well, and I've already seen that in the GPT that Tara built for me. She fed it all the information from a very lengthy conversation that she and I had about all the things about me and my brand, because she's an expert at branding, and that's how she knows how to do this. But I can at least use that as a starting point where, I'm like, okay, tell me how to say this, as I'm still trying to work on what my copy for the website will be. And it's better. It at least understands what I'm trying to be about, because I do offer a lot of business consulting, and anybody who knows me knows I've always struggled with the word consultant. I equally detest the word coach, because I don't feel like I fit the persona of any of those things. Because to me, just consultant is the stuffy old business guy in the suit that's going to tell you what to do and, not just help you just enough, but he's always going to need you. So you never really get that freedom. And then the coach, I'm not going to insult coaches out there, but there are good coaches, and then there are the ones that I don't like to be related to. So it's being able to use that as a starting point, but also keeping in mind, like Jesse said before, if you're not an expert in something, you can't really babysit that. And that's why, I have played around with tools out of curiosity. Like with the new brand that I'm building, I know I need a new logo, I need a website, all of these things. However, I also know there are people like Tara who have put many, many years into this, and she actually knows what's important in branding. So it's not just about, you need to make a pretty logo. It's okay, well, what's accessible? What looks good? What does it convey? What do these colors mean? What is the font? It's way more detailed. So AI can kind of give a starting point for that. And for people who are on a really tight budget, I can understand what's happening. But, Tara's obviously very busy, so I'm waiting to book time with her to do a few things. And in the meantime, I just was like, yeah, let me see. There's a lot of these people are pushing, well, you can use Canva to make logos now, and they have their own AI thing. And I read an article, and it was about all these top AI logo generators. And so just out of curiosity, I'm like, all right, let me just see what it comes up with. And it was atrocious. And it was very cheesy and just nothing that I would see and think this represents a strong brand. It's limited, and most of the AI even said that. It's like, we're still learning, and that's not perfect, and give us feedback and how we can get better. But there are still things where, depending on the level of importance, would I use AI for social media posts? Yeah, because it's social media. I'm not a social media person. I don't put a lot of stock into it. And if I didn't have the budget to pay somebody to manage that, there are times I'm sure I would at least give it a shot, see what happens. But for some of the more important things, I still want a trained professional. I want to use the AI tools, but I still want somebody with Tara's background who actually knows what all of this stuff means together. I still think it's really important to use the people who have put a lot of years into being experts in their field.
Yeah, Amanda brings up a really good point there, that I've heard that a lot of people are using AI to generate logos and things like that. The thing about logos is, if you want to be able to trademark that logo, that's going to be difficult if you used AI to generate it. When you're developing a logo, it's really important that it's an original work, that it's something that was created for you. And an AI and copyright, that's still getting figured out, because AI hasn't been around that long, obviously. But there's still a lot of debate on what part, like if you generate something from AI, how much of that you really own? Can you really trademark it? Can you copyright it? No. And so again, like I think the theme of this whole conversation has been, AI is great. It's a great helper, but it's good to work. If you're not an expert in an area, it's really good to work with an expert in that area. to help you produce whatever you want to produce. And I think using subject matter experts to maybe even help you create, whether it's a GPT or set up the way you use AI so you're getting better results, is even more helpful than just basically saying, okay, I'm just going to use AI to do everything I don't know how to do and just copy and paste. I think that is probably not going to set you up for success.
I think if you use it I think you can use it to make your time better. So say I have an appointment with, we'll say you, Tara. If I'm, I know I'm going to come to you, I'm going to ask you, like, I need X, Y, and Z. I know that you're going to need a lot of information from me. And, if it's, or maybe it's somebody that you're booking for some kind of an hourly service and their hourly fee is really high. I look at it as a comparison. If you do your own bookkeeping, then you're going to pay a lot less for an accountant. If you want your accountant to categorize all your expenses and, do all the work for you, it's going to cost a lot more, but you can come to them prepared and say, look, I did this work on my side. Now I need you, the expert, to put it all together. You can use it that way to kind of help cut costs without cutting the talent out of the person that knows what they're doing. So like, if you were to give me a list of all these things, and say, look, like if I go to you and say, Tara, I need you to write all of the copy for a brand new website, that's going to take you a hefty bit of time. But if I come to you, there's a communication where you can say, all right, like you need to get some of this in order first. It's going to take you less time if I just say, look, I already put these thoughts together. Now fix them. Make them, take my long rambling paragraph and make it work. So it's, I think we can still use it to be more prepared and, but without completely relying on it to do everything for us.
It goes back to understanding what you're using it for, and what I see over and over is the people who are experts are the ones who are going to be able to point out the flaws in what the AI is producing. Tara, being a copywriter, is going to be really good at pinpointing, okay, here are the issues with copy generated by AI. With the logo and graphic design stuff, she can pinpoint, okay, this is just very generic. This isn't going to work for this reason. But for the average person, we don't know what a good result is or a bad result. We just look at it and say, that looks good to me. And then we put it up and wonder why our new website isn't doing well, because we did it all ourselves using AI. We probably used some kind of template for the website. We used ChatGPT to generate the copy, and it's talking about unlocking your potential and all the other cliches. So you sound like a bad combination of a marketer and a coach who's overselling you on stuff and hoping to trick you by using as many high value words as they can, while not really saying a whole lot of anything. I know Tara and I have both worked with people who they use a lot of words, but when you think about it, they haven't really said anything. And AI can be that way in a lot of regards.
I think one of the most... Oh, sorry.
One of the other things I wanted to touch on is that in a lot of ways, using AI to do stuff that you don't really have a grasp over or know what a good output looks like is, if you've ever worked in a company who promotes someone to be a manager or a director of a department they have absolutely no experience in. Like, they put someone who's been working in finance in charge of the maintenance department. A lot of companies do stuff like that and say, well, they don't need to understand the job because all they're doing is managing people. But to manage the people, you have to know what good output looks like to know if they're doing their job well or not. So that's another way I kind of look at AI and why we need to be careful about asking it to do things that aren't really in our wheelhouse.
I think that one of the most useful things for business owners of all sizes, and that could be people like me, who I'm just a one person running my own business, could be smaller businesses, startups, who maybe have a small team, but I would say the number one thing that I hear from every business owner is I spend so much time on admin work, and nobody loves, I shouldn't say nobody, I'm sure there's somebody out there, but most people don't love admin work. And I think that's the types of things I've always said, that there's two things that you should outsource, and it's things that you don't like doing, and it's things that you're not good at doing. And that doesn't mean in any kind of negative way, like, oh, I'm not good at this. No, it's, if you don't love bookkeeping and it's something that you just dread doing and it takes you hours to do it, you're going to save a lot of time that you can put towards things that make you money by paying a bookkeeper to do that stuff, or by hiring an assistant to schedule all your meetings and do all this other stuff. A lot of people are learning to use, and then you two can talk about it more than I can because you've done it, ways to use AI to eliminate a lot of that busy work that's not really lending itself to productivity. And I know you've told me that, like simple things like, a lot of companies have a lot of meetings. Being able to set AI up to record the meeting, transcribe it, summarize it. You used to have a person that would do that. They'd have to listen in and take notes and then type them all up and then send the summary to everybody. To have AI able to do that, I think that helps everybody, because we all know that people spend too much time in meetings, but if you miss a meeting, or maybe you don't have to be in there, you can just read this transcript or the summary of it and get the gist of what you missed, without having to spend, like Mind Game even mentioned, being able to use all this AI. Instead of watching a whole lecture, just ask everything I want, like maybe not the exact same thing, but there are a lot of things that AI can help us reduce the time wasted on admin type activities and meetings.
That's where AI really, right now, excels, is being able to take that admin stuff and be able to automate it, or at least streamline it so you're spending less time on it. And Mind Game's video, something about that just threw me off, but Mind Game's video comment was, I work in the oil industry and use Grok, ChatGPT, and DeepSeek daily. It's very helpful, although I can't trust it fully. Instead of watching a whole lecture, I just ask it everything I want. And I'll turn it over to you, Tara, in a second, because you've got a really good use case that you've done recently. And tying in with what Amanda said with summarizing meetings, that's a place where AI's really helped, because now everybody who goes to a meeting, they generally get at least the overview recap of it, if not the entire transcript. If you have the transcript, now you can go in and search for stuff. You couldn't do that even if you had the regular video, because you'd have to go and transcribe the video, find the timestamp. If you're someone who likes to see and hear, or just read the transcript, if you're more of a I'm not sure how you say that word, text-oriented person. And it's really helped with that. I know Tara recently has tried running the transcripts from client calls or prospect calls through AI and ask for a bunch of feedback. And I'll let you talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think even though I've been doing this for many years, I don't know very many people that feel like they're a natural salesperson. That, hey, you know what? I really know how to close. I know how to close them. I'm a closer. I'm great at it. There are people who are really brilliant at it. But I think a lot of introverts like me are always questioning, well, how did I perform on that call? Did I ask the right questions? I felt like I did, but maybe I didn't. There's a lot of second guessing that goes on. So one of the interesting things I've used AI for is I've told it to be a communications expert, be a business development expert, and take a look at this call I had and assess it from a really objective place. How did it go? And just out of curiosity to see if it went how I thought it went. How does AI interpret it? Granted, again, healthy dose of skepticism. You can't necessarily trust everything AI says. The thing about AI is it can be biased. So if sometimes it will tell you what you think it wants to hear, or it'll tell you what it thinks you want to hear rather. And so you have to be careful when you're putting in those prompts to get a really more objective, unbiased response. And you basically have to ask the question very objectively. So it's here's a meeting between a vendor and a prospect. Assess it from an objective place. How did it go? How did each person seem to be feeling? What did their communication indicate? Where could the vendor have improved, or could they have asked this, or what questions could they have asked to maybe even get a better result? And so I've had some interesting responses from AI when it comes to those types of calls and those kinds of assessments that were actually very helpful, because I found out that, yeah, I generally have a good sense of how the call went, but it would pick up on things that I didn't pick up on, or it would suggest questions that I wouldn't necessarily have thought of at the time. And I thought, well, actually, that would have been a really good question to ask. So it's really something that helps me. Again, it's really a great idea generator. It's a great thing to brainstorm with and help you think of things that you wouldn't necessarily think of on your own. And it's a support system in that way. And I think Amanda earlier mentioned people using AI as a therapist. I wouldn't necessarily go with all the advice it gives you, but if it gives you some helpful advice or gives you helpful ideas, hey, I think that's great.
Yeah, I agree. There's no shortage of ways that we can use AI. And I mean, where else are you going to get someone who can more or less sit in on a call with a prospect and tell you what you're doing well, what areas you can improve on, how to deal with objections. I know I've seen some people talk about using it to do that, to basically have it act as a prospect and to really hone in on objection handling, because that's a big part of the discovery or sales call, is handling the objections that the prospect has and being able to answer them in a way that doesn't feel salesy or like you're trying to pitch them or trying to justify yourself. There's so many, I hate using this term, but landmines you can step on when dealing with objections, because if you answer it the wrong way, or if the prospect feels you're being a little, and I drew a blank on the word, but basically, if you start trying to justify why they should hire you, as opposed to just answering their questions, you can start pushing them away. So coaching is probably one of those areas where AI's, if it hasn't started hitting that market and hurting it in terms of coaches' abilities to make a living, I think that's going to be coming in the near future as more people realize just how powerful something like ChatGPT or Gemini can be in analyzing and giving guidance on how things are being done.
There's so much value in being able to discuss things with other people, even for introverts like us. I know it's much better. I've got a million thoughts going on in my head at all times, but it's nice when the three of us can have a discussion about, well, this is what's happening in my work. This is what's happening in your work. Even though we're doing different things, it helps. So we see common issues with clients and different things, but it's very helpful. And I think that's what a lot of people who run businesses independently, they don't have that person to bounce ideas off of. And that, I think, in the past, people will go to a coach, they'll go to somebody, and it's like, anytime that I've worked with somebody from a consulting capacity, most of the time I'm just asking them questions and listening, and they're figuring out, they already have the answers. They just haven't thought about things in a certain way to bring that out. So it's being able to really listen and understand, what is it that you're dealing with? How can I get inside your brain and pull out that information that's already there? It's a lot more of that than, well, let me tell you what you need to do. It's collaborative. And I think that being able to use AI as that, that not bouncing board, messaging, what am I thinking? That sounding board. I knew it was some kind of board. It's being able to have that, and where you can actually have that conversation, even though it's not with a real person, it's an unemotional thing that has knowledge, whatever it's been programmed to know. And that, I think, can help. It can help us frame the way that we're going to approach conversations, or practice having those. If you have to go out on a sales pitch, you can have that back and forth to anticipate different things that might come up to help you prepare for it. I think all of that can be really beneficial to a lot of us.
The big thing is to be careful in how you're prompting, because, like Tara mentioned, it is very good at telling you what you want to hear. So if you're not careful, you can tell it about your great business idea, and it'll affirm, yeah, that's a great business idea. Here's how you can get started, and kind of push you into doing it. Whereas if you prompt it to be unbiased and to give positive and negative feedback about the idea, you'll get a more balanced response and help you look at the idea from an unbiased viewpoint, to be able to hopefully refine it to a point where you've got a really solid idea, then move forward. And I think we'll move on to the next topic, which we've kind of touched on, and it's with there being so much choice out there in AI land. You've got so many things. How do you choose? How do you not get overwhelmed in trying to figure out where to start? And the easiest way to do that is just focus on a couple of things. If you're watching this, chances are you're doing business work of some kind, or you're a content creator. Either way, the vast majority of people will get benefit from learning an LLM, a large language model. So that's stuff like ChatGPT, Gemini. If you're someone who uses Google's Workspace, that's included in your subscription, or at least it's included in most of them. Look into it if you are with Google Workspace, because Gemini is very solid, a good alternative to ChatGPT. You also have Claude, and it's really good at writing and code. It's good at text writing, copywriting type stuff, and also code. Just trying to clarify there. But from my use, I don't do a lot of copywriting, so I'd be fine using just the free version. But the free version does have pretty low limits. Even the paid version does. You can find yourself hitting those pretty quickly. And with any of these types of tools, if there's a free plan, start there. Upgrade only when you start to find a reason to. There's no reason to jump in and pay for a subscription if you're just testing it out. If it's something you're going to be using regularly and you want to have the more up-to-date or cutting-edge algorithms, or you keep hitting limitations, then you might want to look into paying. The other one, the other area that really comes into play for a lot of people is with visuals, creating graphics or images. And the big ones there are, you've got Midjourney, ChatGPT just put out an image generation thing that's built in. I'm sure you've all seen the dolls or the Ghibli animations. I'm sure next week there will be some new fad that they're using it for. So check social media next week to see what that one is. Adobe has Firefly. Canva has image generation. But really, pick one image generation tool, pick one LLM, so something like ChatGPT or Gemini, and really learn how to use that. Because the better you get at prompting it, the better you're going to be at using AI. If you're trying to spread yourself thin and learn 15 different programs, you're never going to get where you want to be anytime soon. And I can say that as someone who's trying to wrap my head around 15 different things right now. That's what working in this space is. I'm trying to learn how to use it to code stuff because I don't have a strong coding background. Learning all of the ways to automate things and build those workflows and troubleshoot them. Learning how to get better at the prompting part of it. There's so many elements there when you're juggling 15 different apps. It just really seems to take a lot longer to learn and become really solid. Whereas if you're just focusing on one or two, you can get up to speed pretty quickly. And most of these apps, like Claude has good documentation, Gemini does, ChatGPT does. If you look on their support sites, there's all sorts of guides to prompting. You go online, there's all sorts of videos for people who are distilling pages upon pages or hours of video content into 20-minute, 30-minute, 60-minute videos that cover everything you need to know about prompt engineering. At least it will give you enough to get your feet wet, but you still need to get in there and practice because, like I said at the beginning, it's a skill. We need to put in the time to really develop it.
Now so say you land on ChatGPT, and I'll say that just because it seems that that's the one that most of my clients have used. And by used, I mean they subscribe to it because it was new and exciting, and they never use it, but they still pay for the monthly subscription. But for people who are actually utilizing it, so just say I'm committed now, I'm going to use ChatGPT. Does it remember? So that like if I have a discussion with it, does it remember what we've discussed? Not just in one chat, but like will it get to know me? And or is it each conversation you're kind of starting from the beginning? So you're feeding it new, like act as this and, in the style of this, or how does that all work?
It does have memory. If you want it right now, it adds certain things to memory, but you can prompt it to add specific things to it. So if you're talking about something, please add this memory or this conversation to memory. It will do that. If you want privacy and you don't want something added to memory, you can prompt it for that. But coming soon, they just rolled this out for their Pro or their Premium, whatever their $200 a month plan is. Full lifetime memory, where it remembers everything. So they're really building this as something that you build a relationship with. It gets to know you over time. It's going to remember everything you talk about. So you don't have those areas where you're talking about something and it completely forgets this part about you. So that's starting to roll out soon for the more affordable subscription plans.
That's interesting. I just always see there's a lot that I don't know. This is why I go to you, or why I go to Tara and let her build me my own little robot, because it's that kind of thing. Because that I definitely see value in that too. Especially if you do write a lot of copy. I'm not somebody who writes a lot of copy, but I'm also somebody who should post on social media more, and I don't because I get stuck. I don't know what people want to hear about. That idea of idea generation is very appealing to people like me, But I like the idea of having, okay, so I have my little robot friend. It already knows my background. It's been fed all this information. So now if I ask it a question, it's already basing it on me and what I need because, I think it's going to get to that point where for each person, it's very individual. Like I want AI to know me. So it's giving recommendations that make sense for me.
And that's where everything's moving towards, is being able to do that. And in your situation, you go into ChatGPT, tell it, help me generate a 30-month, not 30-month, that would be a really long content calendar, but a 30-day content calendar. This is the type of work I do. I guess your robot already knows. It's already been programmed to know what you do. You might need to tell it who your audience is, and if you don't know who your audience is, ask it. This is the type of work I do, or you know what type of work I do. Who would be my target audience for social media posts? Get that answer. Okay, now let's create a 30-day content calendar for LinkedIn addressing this target audience. And it should give you a list, or maybe, actually, if it was me, I'd probably want like a list of 100 ideas for social media content. And then go through and rate it and say, okay, let's focus on these 30 topics, and ask it to generate ideas for that. And you can just keep refining as you go. Once you get the list down, okay, I've got this idea. How do we go about turning this into an actual post? We need a title or a headline. Then we need the body of the post. Is there a style we want it to be in? If we're on LinkedIn, we're probably, what's that guy's name? Yasmin. We'd probably be trying to emulate his style because he seems to live and breathe LinkedIn. So he knows very much what works and what doesn't. So we'd probably follow his template for what a good LinkedIn post looks like. We'd use that to train it on the body. Now we have our headline, we've got the body. Now we have to create an image. Okay, help me come up with an idea for an image that's going to be good for engagement on LinkedIn. And it should give you some ideas. Probably in a few months, it'll be able to just completely generate the thumbnail or the image for you. Right now, you probably have to do a little work on your own or mix tools together. But that's how you would approach doing something like that in ChatGPT. It's not as simple as write me a social media post, or even if you put write me a social media post about this, it's still probably going to miss the mark because it doesn't have enough information to do better, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. And I think those are the kinds of things I think a lot of business owners can really benefit from because they're the people like me that we know it's out there. We know we can use it. We don't know how. We need somebody to say because we hear a lot of, well, you just have to know how to prompt it. It's like, oh, okay, but how do you learn how to prompt it? There's this that little piece, like you said, there's a lot of videos and things. So it's like with any new software or anything, it sounds like it's just doing your research and then just practicing and getting better with it. I did, because I saw a few videos again on the Canva integration with ChatGPT where it does that. Like you can basically do the back and forth prompting, and then once you're ready for it, it says, oh, would you like me to generate this image? And then it just does it directly in your Canva account. And then you can change the colors and move things around and, really fine tune it. I haven't played with it enough to know like if it actually does anything good or not, but just the idea that happens. And that's one of those things too. It's kind of similar to AI when Canva came around. And there's still, I just saw a post in a Facebook group about this today. It's, I think for somebody that does content creation or something was asking if they should put on their resume that they are proficient in Canva, because it's still controversial, because we know that, people used Photoshop and Illustrator and different professional programs for a long time. And then Canva came around, and there are a lot of people that's just like, oh, I can use this. And when I say that I can use it, I mean, I can tinker around and do okay. It still does not make me a content creator by any means. But I think there are a lot of people who've really embraced it and learned how to use it, and they'll use their templates. And for things like social media, it saves them time. And people fought it for a long time. Now they're starting to embrace it more. It's why does it matter what tools you use if you're getting the result that you need? So I think AI is kind of going down that. So it's not anything new to be very hesitant about new technology and initially think, I don't know about that. But I still think that embracing it and figuring it out just is the way to go.
I think it goes back to what you had said about people being resistant to change and what's been traditionally done. And I look at the Canva versus Adobe, Photoshop, Illustrator type things as with houses. For a long time, you had to have granite countertops, you had to have hardwood floors or tile floors. Those were the premium floors. You started seeing luxury vinyl pop up. Everybody was against it until they started understanding it. And all of a sudden, people are accepting it because you can have the look of hardwood without all of the maintenance. You don't have to deal with sanding it and refinishing it every few years. You don't have to worry about wiping up any kind of water right away or having the wood bubble up or get warped. Same thing with Canva and other things that are coming out. Adoption was kind of slow. People fought it, but I think Canva is probably just as heavily used as Photoshop, if not more now, because it's so much easier and faster than doing it in Photoshop. I know, Tara, when you do stuff for companies, you've moved a lot more towards Canva than doing it from scratch in Photoshop.
And that hurts my designer heart to say, because, I came of age using, I used Photoshop in high school and started learning Adobe that young. And that's, as a designer, those are the programs you used. And then Canva came out, and it really changed the landscape. And suddenly it made it easier for clients to design things on their own. But I had to shift my way of thinking. Not Canva's taking my work away from me, and now nobody will hire me because Canva's much cheaper. But okay, how can I utilize Canva to help my clients? How can I build templates for them. I can help them make the best use out of Canva possible. I can make it really easy for them to order business cards, because when I used to design business cards for clients, they would come back to me year after year. Okay, we need to update the design here. We need to update an address. We need to update this and then reprint. This way, they can easily do that themselves in Canva. And that saves them time, and that saves them having to come back to me and me having to okay, that's 15 minutes of my time. That stuff just isn't, I like to do what's better for my clients in the long run and make things easier for them. And Canva does help them do that. Would I ever use Canva for a logo? Absolutely not. Or any really great piece of work or art. That is still 100% the programs I normally use. But for social media posts, business cards, it is a really helpful tool.
And we've got another question. This comes from a fellow McEwan. Are you familiar with the AI Cedric? This is what I'm currently using for my sales platform. That's not one that I've run across, but I don't really cross into the world of sales that much. Tara, have you heard about that one?
I have not. I would like to
Stephanie,
know
we're
more.
feeling you.
That's sort of like what we were talking about earlier. There's so many platforms out there, and if you're doing sales, there's going to be a whole lot of other platforms out there that specialize in that. I know I've seen the HubSpot. I don't know if that's really sales. I know it's kind of sales adjacent, but yeah, it's impossible to know all of the AIs because there's just so many of them. I If I was in sales, I'd be curious to know what it does. So if you want to tell us a little bit about what it does for sales, that could be helpful for us.
Yeah, I'm laughing because the first search that comes up if you Google it is an article from Entrepreneur with it just is basically there's an Amazon leak that they're pushing people to use Cedric instead of ChatGPT, and for whatever reason. But it sounds like it's similar. I would love to hear if Stephanie wants to talk more about what she's using it for, because that's the thing. There's so many of these tools out there, and we're all going to be using different ones. Yeah, and
Based
I
on
don't
that,
have. Oh, go. I
based
was
on
just gonna
what you
say I don't
just
have
read,
sales experience.
from what you just said, I'm guessing that Cedric might be an Amazon AI, probably aimed at sales if it's talking about trying to coax people away from ChatGPT onto Cedric. But yeah, that's one I'm not familiar with. I'm sure we could do some research, but yeah, I'd love to hear what you're doing with it and if it's fulfilling the needs that you use it for. And
Ah,
I use it to help me with cold emails, cold calls. I'm now an Amazon employee in which they pushed me into it. So going back into what Tara or Amanda read. So is it doing the copy, or is it helping you find contacts?
well, she answers that. I just like it when they have human names. I know I'm more likely to use Claude as just because I feel nice. It's like, oh, I talked to Claude. It just feels more personal.
Yeah, so Amazon acquired One Medical in the health system. So Amazon's definitely going into the medical field. I know they've been pushing the medications and have talked about offering medical services, and sounds like they're taking steps to get in there. And then she said she's using it for copy. Are you happy with the copy that it's generating, or is it, because copy is one of the areas I know Tara and I have really struggled finding AI to be good and not need a lot of human fixing, if that makes sense.
I know I get a lot of cold emails from people trying to offer me services, and it's not one of them has been something where I've given it a second thought, because to me it sounds very clearly, and this has been going on long before AI. It's just, somebody is not personalizing anything, is just sending the same template to everybody, and it's very obvious. Sometimes they even forget to adjust the parts that are supposed to be adjusted to make it personal. So, and I've seen that too in emails where somebody used AI to create an email, but there was a little part at the bottom that they were supposed to delete that indicated that that was part of the prompt, or it was the AI instructions saying, make sure to personalize this or something. It's, I think, also being careful that it's fine if you're using AI, but you still want to proofread an email before you send it, is my advice.
And I think another thing to really worry about with cold outreach in general is it's going to be very difficult to distinguish legitimate cold outreach from all of the scam stuff out there. Once the scammers figure out how to really use AI to hone in on their scams, I think email is going to be a little more of a tricky medium to use for outreach, for like client generation. So a couple more comments from Stephanie answering the question about whether she's happy with the copy sometimes, but I'm so new to AI in general. We all started there. It does take practice. I would hope that Amazon provides some training on how to get the best out of it, assuming that this is an Amazon software. And she also said, I've even asked Cedric to make it more personal and not so sales pitchy. And in my experience, sometimes with AI, you can tell it that, and it doesn't want to pay attention. It can be challenging to get it to think outside of its own box. And when it's been trained on so much sales copy, it's going to sound like that. And that's been the biggest struggle Tara and I have had with using it to write copy, is it just sounds like, at least with ChatGPT, it sounds like really bad marketing from 15 years ago. It doesn't sound like marketing in 2025.
And as Tara told me after the fact one time after I experimented, it doesn't quite understand humor. Or I had given it a prompt in trying to write some copy, and it just mentioned, like, we're kind of using this angle, about like the business remix, and it took it way too far, and every sentence it wrote tried to put in some kind of a music reference, and it was just way too much. I'm like, no, this is okay. We've got to dial this back. I need to give you better instructions because this did not work.
And that's what it is. It's a lot of trial and error. You start to realize, okay, it's sounding pitchy, so it's now you've got me on the music stuff. It's sounding like a sales pitch. So what type of words is it overusing? What types of words would you prefer for it to use? And start trying to find ways to add that into the prompt, or if there's a way to add like instructions, custom instructions. A lot of AIs have a place where you can do that. You can start putting together, and ChatGPT might be a good thing to use for this. Even the free version. Just put in your original prompt that you put into Cedric, copy the response or a number of responses you're not happy with. Tell ChatGPT, this is what I don't like about it. How do I write a prompt that eliminates this so it doesn't sound so much like a sales pitch? Tara and I have both had good experience using different chat bots to kind of feed back and forth to get better prompting. And that's something we haven't really talked about. AI can help you get better prompts. So maybe even working within Cedric, and I know I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but that's what happens when I'm trying to give advice on the fly. In Cedric, after it gives you a response, go through it, adjust it the way that you want it to sound, so that you can then say, okay, I don't like how that came out. This is how I would prefer that to be written. Now tell me a prompt I can use so you will generate this type of output when I ask. You might need to refine that a few times, but that should help you at least get a little bit closer. And she said, ooh, I like this. Pinning them against each other. This could be fun. And I don't know if I read about that technique somewhere else or if I learned that from Tara. But I know Tara was doing that, and I never even mentioned it to her. And she's like, oh, I did this. I'm asking ChatGPT to do this, and then I take that and I put it into Gemini, and then Gemini tells me to do this, and I put it back over here.
Oh yeah, I've pitted them against each other. I've actually had them assess the other's work and responses without telling them it was the others, just to see. It was interesting. I like experiments.
Well, with experiments too, we can't forget how many people are now using AI to replace headshots and things of that nature. We've made some attempts, and the first batch came back with some images. There was one that's still my favorite. It was my face, but I was holding a hairbrush that was plugged into an amplifier, and I was holding the hairbrush upside down. I think it thought it was a microphone, but somehow it became a brush, and I'm not quite sure what that was. But we've had a lot of great entertainment at what AI has tried to produce as far as photos of the three of us. But we're still sticking with the actual real photos for now.
We are. There's just no replace. It's getting closer, but there's still just some funky ways we've come out, and it makes our skin really waxy, like we're dolls.
I also enjoyed the one where it showed me sitting on a couch, but obviously the sheer weight of me was crushing the couch because we know that I'm not a large person, but I sat on this couch in AI and there was just this massive dent underneath me. So,
Yeah.
we're not there yet, but it's really good fun if you need some laughs. I can imagine Stephanie and her husband Mike having a good time with some AI photos of themselves. I mean, it makes me think of Mike back when, what was it, when Mac first started coming out with Photo Booth, and there were all those effects, and this was before TikTok, that you could put certain effects, and I've seen a few photos of Mike with a twisty face and other things. So if you do that, I would like to see some of the results, please.
And Stephanie said, "Thanks, Jess. This is helpful. Not a problem. That's what we're here for." And another fun, I'll be making dinner and I'll hear Tara laughing in her office, so I know she's playing around with the AI photos, and she was trying to create a picture of both of us together in the same scene, and it decided to put my face on with her hair. So she was laughing at that. There's been a whole bunch of really weird, bizarre stuff. There was one with Amanda on like this toy-sized couch. There was a lot of fun with the couches.
It likes to put couches in parks too. So if you say, "Give me a headshot with some cherry blossoms," I'm standing in a park. There's some cherry blossoms behind me, and they put the couch in my living room right behind me.
You don't take the couch to the park with you?
I love my lime green couch. It's true. I really like that thing, but I actually don't. I didn't want it in that photo. But it was like, "Nope, you're going to take that lime green couch everywhere you go."
Well, and Amanda loves couches. Her pictures would have rows upon rows of couches. She'd have a couch behind a couch behind a couch. So she must live in a giant couch showroom. At least that's what AI seems to think.
And I also really liked myself because all the art in the background had my face on it also. Sometimes it was more artistic versions of my own face, but I was one of those rich people that has a giant portrait of themselves taking up the wall behind all the couches that,
Yeah, behind all the there was all these really large abstract portraits of herself. It was great. But I think again that goes back to what we've been saying about always having that healthy amount of skepticism with AI, because you can have a lot of fun with it. It can be really helpful, especially the text base, the LLMs, but it's still in its infancy. There's still a long way to go before we're really at the point where we can generate super realistic selfies. Some people do it. I see a lot of people using them on their LinkedIn and social media posts, and it's close enough to where people are like, yeah, maybe, but I think people can still tell. There's a look, at least I can tell, and maybe it's because I'm a photographer, but I can tell when somebody uses AI as their photo. There's just something different to the face and the feel and the eyes, and it just has a look.
Mm-hmm. I think the question is, would you notice it as much with people you don't know as you do with people you do know?
That's a tough question, because I think there was a couple of times where somebody said they had generated something from AI, and I was like, oh, because I'd seen them on video, and I was like, oh, I didn't notice that. But most of the time, I feel like there's a look about it. Even if I don't know the person, there's just something that feels very AI to me about it.
I mentioned, excuse me, I mentioned that I'm very sensitive to it, apparently, because I've seen what happens. A lot of people want to take now old footage because, I watch a lot of documentaries, and people now they want to take footage from, say, like the 80s and the 90s, and make it, HD and make it look new. But I think we need to remember that we all understand that technology didn't exist, and so things from the 80s and 90s, it's going to be grainy, and we should just leave it that be. Because I know that I pointed it out a few times, but I was watching then a documentary about the making of We Are the World, and it was a Bruce Springsteen video that, the Dancing in the Dark video, which we know was from the 80s, I think, and they had clearly used AI to clean it up, and he just looked like a cartoon character. And then audience, I'm like, how did this make it to this? Like, it wasn't some low budget thing. Like, they did this intentionally, and I just it. A lot of people said they didn't even notice, but I'm just it jumps out at me. I'm like, wait, that's not real. I think there's something in my brain that just yells like, wait, something doesn't make sense here. What is it? It was just a short clip. It didn't really matter, but it just one of those things. It's like, if we're gonna put that out there, we should still make sure it looks better. We should be improving things, not making them look fake and cartoony and weird, unless the goal is fake and cartoony and weird.
And I think I have a unique perspective on this when it comes to the images because there's a name for it. I'm drawing a blank and it'll take us all night for me to think of the word, but I don't see anything in my head. I can't visualize stuff. It's just dark in there. So when we're going through all of these AI images, I don't have a visual reference unless if Tara's showing me something, unless she's right next to it, I can't accurately compare the AI image to her. I have a pretty strong recollection of what she looks like. So I can look at it and go, yeah, that looks like you. And then she'll stand next to it and it's like, okay, yeah, I can see that maybe the nose is a little wider than it is in real life, or this or that. If it's really off, if it's changed like my body shape or someone else's body shape or the shape of their face, that's a lot more noticeable. But the more subtle details, those are things I'm not going to pick up on because I don't have that visual reference. And that's why I asked that question. What?
It's called aphantasia.
Aphantasia. Here's my question for people in the audience and for both of you. If you recognize that someone is using AI for their photo or their work, does it give them less credibility to you? Like, does it change your feelings toward them and their work or their business?
For me, it depends on what the intention is. If it's social media, if it's a little photo, I don't. I mean, I think that we should all, like I said, I think we should all embrace the technology as we can. So I'm pretty supportive of it. I think the difference is how they're trying to portray, are they trying to put it out there as if it's a real photo? So I think if there's not transparency, it bothers me a little bit. Like if somebody posts their AI photo and then everybody's like, "Oh, you look amazing," because it's kind of like all the filters that the people, I was almost about to say the young people, but all the filters that everyone uses now, so that like nobody has a line on their face anywhere. I don't love that because I still want people to look like themselves. And I think it's different if somebody puts their AI photo out there and everybody's saying, "Oh, you look so great. This is amazing," and there isn't any transparency that says, "Well, that's not actually me," or "I didn't," like here's me on AI in Africa, and then presenting it as if I went on a trip to Africa that I didn't go on. That's where I have issue with. But I think if we embrace it and there's transparency, then I'm all for it. And I don't, if I see that somebody I feel like as scrolling through LinkedIn, I feel like I can tell a lot of people are using AI to write their posts. Doesn't bother me at all because if it's better content and I can get more out of it, I don't care how they came up with it. Again, unless they're passing it off as, like if they're taking somebody else's idea and then pretending that it was theirs, and there's that level of it. But for the most part, I just think, if you're working smarter, good for you. If you're saving yourself time and taking the the effort away from it in a way that doesn't hurt anybody, cool, embrace it.
Yeah.
For
And I think
me, go on.
no, go ahead.
For me, it really depends. If it's something like an image, I don't really care. I'm not going to take issue with it if someone's using it as like on a thumbnail for a social media post. I start looking at it. What's the difference between cutting yourself out of an image and putting you in a different background? It starts to get kind of nitpicky. I don't think pictures offer a lot of value unless you're a photographer or someone who makes a living from that sort of thing. Where I start kind of holding a negative impression for people is when they do use it for the writing. Like I know I've seen people in LinkedIn who you can tell it's being done by ChatGPT because it's got 50 lines. Each line has its own emoji. And honestly, I do discount it. If I see that, if I see that it sounds like if it reads like it was written by AI, I just start to dismiss it and skip on to the next thing. That's me. Mm-hmm. Go on, Tara.
Yeah, and I think that's something I see a lot of people discussing and people saying, if your post looks like it was written by AI, I skip it. You're discounted in my mind. And so I was just curious about that perception, and it goes to talking about like that transparency, the importance of that, and also the importance of using AI responsibly and ethically. Where do we draw the line? I think a lot of us are figuring, well, all of us are figuring that out right now. We're figuring out, okay, what is the best way to utilize this? And I agree that it's easy. Like, I think it's great to, help you generate social media captions to save you time. I am all for that. But I think it's always important to give it that human eye, to read it through and add your own flavor to it and make your edits to it so it is you. And it really, again, if you train it really well and it gets to know you and your voice, it can come up with prompts that are much closer to how you speak without all the marketing jargon and all of the emojis on every line. But like at a place like LinkedIn, that's not what I see. I see when I'm scrolling through my feed, every post now is full of emojis. On every line, and the posts start to blur together and they sound the same, and it's harder and harder to differentiate people and tell thought leadership apart and who's who. And the posts that really stand out to me are those raw ones where you can tell the person is just shooting right from their heart. They're just telling it like it is. It's raw, it's real, it's not always super pristine, it's not filled with smiley faces and stars and check marks. And I see people reacting to those the most. I think people can tell. And I know they've done some studies on how people respond to AI posts versus non-AI posts. And I think one of the studies actually showed that people responded better to some of the AI posts, which surprised me. But again, I think it's still really controversial right now. So I was just curious how you two felt if it's somebody's using AI, because there's a lot of people out there that it gives them a negative impression about a business or a brand or a person.
And I agree with you in that it depends on the quality. I know when I'm scrolling through, if I see all those I don't respond to emojis. I feel it, again, because I'm old. I feel like it just doesn't, I don't do that in my text. I might use a little laughing emoji or, the basics. But I personally couldn't do a social media post that was filled with all of that, because that's not true to who I am. And I think that's what's important. So if it comes across as you're trying to sell me something, I'm going to scroll by it 100% of the time. If you're telling me who you are and it's your story, that's what I'm drawn to. And so I agree with you. If you're using it to kind of come up with the framework, but then you're taking what AI created and personalizing and making sure that it is who you are, that's what I respond to. And I know for me, Like I consider myself a professional. I work with a lot of business owners. I work with a lot of different kinds of people. It's important to me that I'm portraying myself as who I actually am, because if they're going to work with me in any capacity, I want them to know exactly who I am, not this, present just with the words again, like what some of the AI comes up with, and the words and phrasing that I would never use if I wrote it myself. I think it's being very conscious of that, and remaining true. And I even hate to use the word authentic, because that's been blown up, for the last few years. Everything's about authenticity, but it's true. I mean, we connect with people and we want to work with people that we really resonate with. And I think if they get too robotic and AI, and it all starts to be the same. Anytime I see those check boxes, I'm like, oh, I'm out. So it just depends.
For me, if it's something that's meant to be coming from you, it needs to sound human. I think what we're seeing on LinkedIn is the posts that make us feel something are the ones we're going to engage with. We've got a couple answers to your question. From Mike, it bothers me when I know what people look like and their pictures don't match. I can't tell if it's filters or AI images, but I don't like it. There's a third option. They might be realtors. I've never seen an industry where it's so commonplace for people to use pictures that are at least 10 to 15 years old. I can't think of the last realtor we've worked with where their picture actually looked like they do in that current year.
It's Chad. And it's because Chad was upset for the longest time that he didn't have any gray hairs yet. And he's 50 and he finally got some gray hairs. So his realtor pictures are current and accurate to what he actually looks like. But I think he's the exception.
And I don't think we ever saw pictures of him since he came recommended from you. And then Stephanie, I've considered using AI for posting on platforms. I've not ever used AI to create LinkedIn posts or any other post. And I'm glad you talked about this. I will shoot from the heart on those. And that's what it's really about. If we're writing a blog article, which is just informational or educational, that's probably a little bit different. But if it's something where we're trying to build our personal brand and develop thought leadership, the types of stuff we might be doing on LinkedIn, or, I mean, why would somebody post on Facebook or whatever social media platform of their choice about their day? That's just to me, that seems weird. So LinkedIn, social media, that sort of thing should always come directly from you. Makes people feel more of a connection. And I talked about that earlier about, I think with all of this AI use, we're going to see more of a premium placed on that real human interaction and communication and stuff that feels genuine.
I agree. I'm already seeing that.
And we have hit our 2-hour mark. I think this is probably a good place to end things. We've had a good talk. You asked a really good question to close us out. So I want to thank everybody for watching and participating.
Lots of McEwans in one room.
A lot of McEwans.
I like it.
So we'll be back here next week to talk a little bit more about AI, and then this isn't going to be all about AI. We're going to get more into Tara and Amanda's worlds as well as we go on. So see you next week.
Just real quick, for any of you that are here, if there are topics that are of interest, please let us know so we know what you want to hear about, and that will help us figure out what we should talk about.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and I guess we haven't talked about it, but you can contact us at brandonbusinessremix.com. That's our new website. It's a landing page on our old website right now, but the new website is being designed as we speak. So that's how you can get in touch with us. That's where we offer our business services and coaching, consulting. I know we've landed on some term for it, but that's where you can reach us for help. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.